I believe we are live. What is happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic weekend. Happy Saturday to you. If you're watching this, chances are your Saturday did not quite go as well as you had hoped. Happy almost, is it daylight savings time or just it's time to torture most of everybody time? Whoever came up with that, I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't need to know. All I know is that is some sadistic stuff right there. So anyway, basically, you're going to do a bit of an open chat. What have I been up to? Well, basically, if y'all been on the Instagrams, you'll see what I have been up to's. More intake stuff. There you go. Looking down the belly of the beast right there. There's your throat. There's the runners. God, you can't really see them. Anyway, this is the brand new one that Dr. Diff had sent me. The funny thing is that, you know, even though it's brand new, it wasn't without its faults. So this intake all the intake manifolds always have some level of core shift or something like that. This one, stock versus cleaned up, but you know, blueprinted the way that I do these things, is going to be significantly better over stock. This thing had more inclusions and things were jagged and all this other stuff in these runners. So I took a lot of material out of this one. Normally, it doesn't take this much removal of material to get it to this level, but took a bunch of material out of it, and it's going to do really well for this customer. I'm kind of stoked to get you know, to hear their success with it. But anyway, that's what I've been up to. You know, a lot of folks ask, you know, speaking of manifolds, you know, it's that time of year. You know, I typically don't mess with manifolds until March, and I'll be porting manifolds throughout the year for Doc Diff. But, you know, before I wouldn't even touch manifolds until March, and I would only do them for about a month or two because I would get a lot of requests for them, and then these things take a lot of time to port. So, you know, it's how much power do I get out of a manifold? It depends on how bad your manifold was to begin with, and also which, you know, what fuel are you using, what altitude are you at, and all this other stuff. It just kind of gets into there. What I try to tell folks is this is one of the absolute best supporting mods that you can do to your car, and the reason I say that is because I've seen what these runners can look like, and I can only imagine what they're doing to airflow. Once they're cleaned up, they're basically going to act the way that I'm over here still kind of picking at this one, getting some of the burrs off of it. It'll flow basically what the engineers wanted it to flow like, and you don't want to, like, if this is your runner, you don't need a bunch of stuff sticking in there, being all jagged and everything. It can make things a little bit funky. So anyway, let me check in with everybody, see who is in. K's in saying, Mopar, baby, got the arm flex. I like it. Michael Smith saying, hello. Mark's checking in saying, hey, Mason. Hey, what's up, Mark? Oh, man, Sam was saying he's got some more transmission woes. Always bad to hear you're having disagreements with your tranny. Sovereign saying, hey, B. Mason, getting ready to grab some grub, but I'll keep you on. I like it. Everybody's favorite white noise generator in the house. What is that? HV something? I'm Mark's dad. What's up, H? I like it. Thank you for hanging out with us. Case checking in saying, is it possible to get a limited slip disc differential on a 2006 Challenger SRT8? It comes stock with an open diff, but 09, 010 had LSD. That would be the Gaytrag unit. And yeah, I believe that still does use the Gaytrag unit. However, you might want to make sure that you're paying attention to the flange that you're using. Some have a 3-bolt flange, others have a 4-bolt flange. So just make sure that the Gaytrag unit that you're getting is going to be compatible with the drive shaft that you have. I believe they're 3-bolt flanges, if I'm not mistaken. If not, DSS, if I remember correctly, DSS will sell you a drive shaft, like you need to buy one, right? But if you can't find one to fit your needs, the right Gaytrag unit, DSS, I believe, can put the different yokes on the front and on the rear, so it matches your transmission to that diff. Mark saying, that's not my damn dad. That's my friend with the SS I asked about beating. Oh, well. Good deal. Brooks checking in saying, I just put SRT Hellcat seats in my 19 Scat. Now it says something about airbags. Checked all connectors, all good. What do you think? So make sure that you didn't break one of the connections. If it chimes while you drive, a lot of times, like if you get a code, not a code, it'll just be a warning sign saying like airbag not ready or something like that. A lot of times that's just a connector that's jacked up. Because there shouldn't be anything different with the connectors at all. Oh, make sure that the rocker connector, make sure that thing is all the way up. A lot of times when you go to plug that thing in, if you don't get the rocker handle all the way up to lock it in place, that can create a problem too. Cap's checking in saying, what's happening, Professor Mason? What's happening, everybody? Got the arm flex, got the bald guy with the shades. I like it. Let's see. Oh, Sam's talking about he's got a weird random downshift 3-2 under light input throttle. Let's see. X is checking in. If there's a way to tune out the fake backfire and popping in the 392, that's deceleration fuel cutoff, DFSO. And yes, you can absolutely tell it to just never have the DFSO, and you can control when it comes on as well. Interesting thing though, I've actually tried to tune it to where it would do it more, and it didn't make a difference. Let's see. M's checking in. I can't even read it. They say, how you been, Mason? Doing good, man. Sam's checking in. It's on the bright side. I'm talking with the guys at Firepunk. All righty, good deal. Mono Red Timmy saying, what's up, Professor B? I like it with the arm flex. Mono Red Timmy saying, 15 watching and 3 likes. Hit that like button. Yeah, hit that like button, y'all. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. Ring the bell. That's even more important, I think. I don't know how these... the analytics or whatever, algorithms, I don't know how that stuff works, but I can tell you, the more likes you get and the more bells that you get, I think bells is even more important. I don't even know, man. Nobody can really explain it to me. It's witchcraft as far as I'm concerned. Bruce is checking in, asking, if I were to consider purchasing a 2017 Daytona 392 that has a rebuilt title, how would one go about making sure it's safe to buy, or what other route would you go? First of all, 2017 with a rebuilt title is going to be somebody putting that thing back together after a wreck. Rebuilt title, salvage title cars, things like that are always a little bit dicey. And I always try to tell folks, look, they're cool if you don't mind basically just throwing the money at the thing, but never expecting to get any of it back. And it's hard to... but it's like this. The resale side of this thing is going to be tough. That's the proposition that you're up against. But in terms of just making sure that it's a serviceable vehicle, and again, we're talking about a potential flood vehicle here, some kind of a wreck, some kind of a total thing. You need to ascertain what exactly is the reason why the thing is a rebuildable title, whatever that is, salvage or whatnot. I'll put it to you like this. If it is a flood vehicle, that thing is off limits. A lot of folks will they'll think they're getting a great deal on a car because it's a flood vehicle. The thing is dried out. Somebody's hit it with enough Lysol. You don't notice the smell. The problem with a flood vehicle, even if the water just got inside and didn't completely submerge the engine, the transmission, the rear end, or whatever, the vents stayed above water. The problem is when the water gets in that thing, it kind of wicks up through the carpet, gets into stuff all over the place, and it'll start to corrode things. The problem is that corrosion is accelerated like you wouldn't believe, and things will just start to go bad randomly, and it'll be impossible to track down the problem. So basically a flood car, if you ever buy it, sometimes you can get away with it, sometimes you can't. It's basically a flip of the coin though, and I don't know if you want to leverage thousands of dollars on what is more or less a flip of the coin. So but to that point, I came this close to buying a Roadrunner that was flooded right after Harvey. Captain Scat saying, what is tonight's topic? We're doing open topic tonight. So the intro, what I was talking about is I just got through porting an intake for Dr. Diff. So if you guys had been on the Instagram, I had posted the shot of the throat. There you go. I can't really see because of the lighting, but anyway, it's like, oh wow, you're looking at a hole. This is a brand new intake, and a lot of folks that have heard me talking about porting manifolds, are always asking things like, what kind of gains do you get, what kind of horsepower can you expect, and all this other stuff. And this is a supporting mod. It's porting, but it's really blueprinting. It's just getting that intake to flow what the engineers had originally intended the thing to flow like. And what happens is that this is a 3-piece manifold, and I'm hoping you can see this. This section right here is one seam, bottom seam, top seam. This is where this manifold comes together right here. You got your short runner, where the short runner would actuate. It's where it actuates it. Dude, perform. This is where the short runner actuator will bolt up. That's the little flap right there, the controller for the flap. Anyway, long story short, you can see that the runners are passing through these seams, and where those seams are, that's where you get a lot of, that's where it'll shift. And that little medium or, inch tall section of it, that's one of the parts that'll move around. And in there, you'll find that you'll get a lot of intrusion into the runner itself. And some are bad, some are not bad. But in some cases, those pieces of the sandwich that makes up this thing can move around. And they all of them have some level of core shift. Some are more than others. And in this case, this one just had, when it was pressed together, it had a lot of basically casting flash inside the runners. So in this case, this intake with no porting it'd have been pretty choppy in there. But I went in there, smoothed out all the seams, got everything nice and transition-y. But I had to remove a lot of material to do that. So some intakes you don't have to remove as much. Other intakes, you got to move a lot of material. And then in the throat, when I'm porting one of these things, I spend a lot of time reshaping the innards of that thing. Hopefully you can see that. I don't have my light in here, but I spend a lot of time reshaping that area. It's tough to get it to actually move the kind of air that you want to without doing some reshaping of that throat. But you spend enough time on it, I can get it where I need it to get. But the data looks great. I mean, when I'm looking at data and these things are moving the kind of air that they move, whether it's cammed or stock, seeing them get to basically ambient, flat across the, flat across the power band, that's really what you're looking for. So I'm looking forward to seeing how, how this one does for the customer. I've got another one that's going to be going on the dyno with a cammed car. I don't know, sometime in the middle of next week, it looks like. That's one where I ported the intake, and he's going to be getting one of Dr. Differential's throttle bodies. So that'll be very cool. In fact, right there, you can see just the very top of the original prototype for those throttle bodies. That's the throttle body that I'm now using as my template when I'm cutting these manifolds. Boosted Emmy checking in and saying, hello, B, got the fist bump. I like it. Tuxedo Black saying, hey, B, just sitting here and drawing on my tablet. I like it. I just did a St. Patrick's Day character yesterday. His name is Lincoln the Leprechaun. I like it. LL cool leprechaun. Ladies love leprechaun. 3L. How about that? Yeah. Modern Red saying, get a spare 5.7 block, or got a spare 5.7 block. Should I stick with stock pistons or bored out 10 or 20 pro charged application? Go 10 over. You just want to have a cleanup basically at that point. And if it's a spare, you're gonna be buying pistons for this thing anyway. Just go. You can get away with 10 over. Don't worry about going 20 over. In fact, I'd rather have it 10 over. Just have a little bit more wall thickness if it means anything. And then make sure you set your ring gap correctly. I would say 26, 27 thou on the top ring, or 25 to 26 at least on the top ring. Well, it's a 5.7 block. Let me think about this. Yeah, I'd still go 25 thousandths on the top ring, like 26, 27 thou on the bottom ring, or on the second ring. Oh, Broklahoma saying you can never trade in a rebuilt title car. I don't think they qualify for recalls. That could very well be the case too. I'm not that well versed when it comes to the salvage title cars, mainly because I really won't go anywhere near one if I don't have to. Xcash said, is there any way to bleed the clutch in a 6-speed? Every time I brake hard or long, the clutch will get a little spongy and be hard to shift. I'm already running .4. Yeah, you may need to vacuum bleed it, or you can pressure bleed it. But yes, there's two different ways to do it. In fact, I believe they have a, well, you can bleed a clutch the same way that you bleed a brake. The thing is, it takes two people to do it. If you do it the traditional way. If you use a pressure bleeder, a lot of guys prefer the pressure bleeder. Basically, it's got a thing with a cap adapter, just basically attaches the cap. And some of them are hand pump, and you just put your brake fluid in there and it'll pressurize the system and force everything through the bleeder at the bottom. You can do that, or you can suction bleed it. I don't like doing suction bleeding on a clutch, primarily because that's like one of the last things that I want to try to get air into. And so anyway, you got to be careful with that. Either way you go, make sure you're monitoring your well, that whatever you're using as a well for your fluid, that doesn't run empty, because that's when it'll just totally suck all the air in there and you're back to square one and it's a nightmare. But yes, absolutely, you can bleed it. Modern Red saying, just got my 6.4 ported and a Hellcat throttle body and at least the button dyno, it makes some difference. It will make some difference. Probably a little bit more responsive with that Hellcat throttle body. It's a big old throttle body on there. HU37 is saying, or asking, when it comes to tires, which would you recommend at the drag strip? MT, ET Streets, or DBRs? DBRs. The car makes about 500 horsepower and has 14 gears. You're going to want DBRs in that case. ET Streets are going to be good. Don't get me wrong. They'll get you there and back too. And the other thing is that they wear like iron. But if you're going to the drag strip, and we're talking about a drag strip only use, then the DBR is going to be practically impossible to beat, because it is such a forgiving. It's forgiving. What is with me tonight? It's such a forgiving tire, number one. And number two, they're lighter. So you may actually see a little bit better 60 foot, maybe a little bit better 1/8 mile out of them with that. But I would say DBR would be your first choice for that, for drag strip only stuff. Broke saying, I put the scat front seats back in one at a time to see if the SRT seats was an issue. The airbag light only went off when both seat were in driver's side seatbelt warning too. I don't know, something. That's weird. That's weird. Yeah, I would say it's got to be a connector or something like that, man. Normally, like I say, you shouldn't run into that problem. Donald Power saying, yo, B Mason, what's up, Donald? Nick saying, I bought a 2018 RT Charger back in June. What should my first upgrade be? Well, learn the car first. I mean, it's the driver mod is the most important mod. But if we're talking about the most important first upgrade, and let's say that this is your daily. Tires is the first thing that comes to mind. But a lot of times when you put a set of drag radials on the car, they can be a little bit squirrely in the rain. The Nitto 555 R2s, which I hate the way that they look, but damn if they're not a good tire, and they're really good in the wet. So I would say for traction and just overall performance, a tire would be my first choice. Second, I think that I would say Hellcat airbox with a Hellcat filter, but really just the Hellcat. You got a Challenger or Charger? Charger, okay. Well, you can still do the Hellcat setup with it. Another good option to go with, and really from there, it just depends on what you're into. Obviously, exhaust comes to mind when you're talking about a 5.7. You can go with SRT manifolds and an SRT catback as a budget approach that would actually perform really well. But that's one of the few things you can do that really wouldn't require a tune. Long tubes, to get the most out of them, you'd need a tune. And basically that's kind of your starter kit. If it's that new, it's up to you if you want to tune it. Tuning, you're going to get a lot of performance out of it. You really don't get a lot of horsepower, but you will get a lot of underfoot butt dyno satisfaction out of a tune. Great if you don't want to bump into that dreaded 1405 code, which will kill any hope or chance that you ever had for a warranty claim. But, if you plan on going pretty deep with this thing, then warranty's already kind of out of the question. Obviously, I'll say ported manifold in a Fastman throttle body would be a good place to start. Dr. differential throttle body as well. There's a lot of things you can do to the car to get a little bit more performance out of it. But again, you can't do a whole lot to it without voiding warranties. And that's where things kind of get a little bit sketchy. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Let's see. Superior Fit saying, I want to make my Hellcat equal to a Red Eye horsepower 800 HP or KP 800 package. Want to stay 93 octane. So let me just say this. If you want to get your Hellcat in and around, say 800 horsepower to the flywheel, 700 to the wheels, it's really not that hard to do. I mean, you're basically looking at like a 295 or a 285 upper. I would say 3.0 to 295 upper is kind of my personal functional limit for the street for 93 octane gasoline. The issue is you don't want to have a car, maybe you do, okay? But for me, I don't want to have a car that I have to rely on Torco, Boostane, or some race gas mix to make my life, to basically satisfy either an OCD or, to give me peace of mind over, just because I wanted to get the thing a little bit faster. Look, I'll level with you. Revlon shows her ass to every stock Red Eye that she runs. The reason for that is because it's got a little bit more timing in it than a Red Eye, because it's the lower boost car. It's going to have more timing in it. And it's got a 309 gear just like they've got. But if you want your car really to run like that, a tune and a 309 gear is all you need. And I'm telling you, it's as predictable as the sun coming up tomorrow. Red Eye gets out on me, and then I just come right around him, put about a car length on him. And I'm not saying, look at me, scalding Red Eyes. It's nothing like that. It's a stock car with no timing in it because it's trying to keep the thing alive on 93 octane. See what I mean? So if you can't tell by the way I'm saying this, the Red Eye, to me, based on the weight, the aerodynamics, and the gearing and the load that car has, it is at the functional limit as far as what 93 octane will reliably be able to manage. And that's something you got to consider. So if you want your Hellcat to hang with a Red Eye, it's pretty easy now that if you're talking about modified Red Eyes, things like that, look, just pick whichever one you like. If you want to put 800 horsepower to the rear wheels, it's easy to do with a Hellcat. So, I mean, that's your Garden Variety Bravo package right there. I mean, Racer X has got that, and that car runs 940s, 950s in really good air. And, I mean, what can you say? I mean, the car just screams, right? So, Hellcat to me is a little bit more of an efficient platform than the Red Eye and Demon, but you can't argue with instant boost like that down low, and that's really what makes those cars special, is that they will 8th mile like nobody's business. So, but again, if you want to throw a little bit more boost at it, you can. 295 is like my functional limit for 93 octane, but 285 can be made to work, but you're probably going to need Torco or Boostane or a race gas mix, or you're going to suffer less timing, which it kind of defeats the purpose of having the smaller pulley on there anyway. kind of a, push me, pull you type thing. So anyway, that's my advice. Hopefully that helps. Oh, Tuxedo's asking, would you ever want to be a cool, famous person only for owning your own car auction with lots of design, like higher end cars? If you own the auction, the thing about it is that, I don't think I would. I think you got to look at it like quality of life. And those guys, that is a traveling circus, by the way. And vetting everything that you're auctioning because you don't actually own it there's a certain liability there that I don't know if I'd want to take on. Bruce is asking a great question. Do you know if Dodge is going to be doing anything for NA guys in the next lifetime or so, or should we move on? So, my man, if I had a prize to give, I'd give it to you. I was literally talking to a buddy of mine. In fact, quick break. We were talking about this today. In fact, we were talking about it just as I was getting ready to kind of do some finish up work on this manifold over here. As far as, is Dodge getting a little bit long in the tooth? And this is kind of one of those letters to the editor type of videos that I may put together. But and I didn't really want to make this the topic. I wanted to have today's show be a little bit more lighthearted, but I got to be honest with you. I mean, Bruce kind of calls out the elephant in the room here. What we're seeing right now is we're seeing Chevrolet basically moving forward with the brand Corvette. Camaro, whether it's around or not, Corvette is the one that's going to get all the pub. Ford with the Mustang is obviously going to be the darling of any of the automotive press outlets. So that leaves Dodge basically doing nothing. And what folks have noticed is that the more you talk about yet the next derivative of the LX platform, the more yawn-inducing that it is. Frankly, and I am, by the way, kind of sidebar here, I'm the biggest critic of online magazines, actual magazines, journos. They're just this side of scum of the earth. A lot of them are. And, somebody that can, smith together a couple of snarky comments and some kind of BS literary reference. Hate that Dennis Miller crap. Anyway, you get the idea where I'm going with that. But I'm on their side with this. Unfortunately, it clocks right twice a day, or at any rate. Look, the Dodge brand itself is getting long in the tooth. The LX platform is getting long in the tooth. We're already talking about the S660. Whatever the Camaro does, again, the Camaro does, but the GM loyalists are going to clamor to that. Plus, you got the ATS Cadillac, which is a freakadelically fast little car. You've got so much stuff coming from GM that we kind of it doesn't really come up on the radar, but there's some really fast stuff that's out there. Dodge has got to do something other than put out another 70, 80, whatever $11,000 thing. It can't be like that. There's got to be something for the NA guys. There's got to be something to get us excited. And the problem here is something that you guys have heard. I guess this is the topic. Okay, so the problem here is the fact that Dodge marketing can't seem to figure out which orifice to stick their head up, because on one hand, they've got this branding that they just cannot seem to run away from. Yeah, it's this constant regurgitation of Hemi and nostalgia and loyalty of the brand and all this other stuff, not understanding that the loyalty of the brand that they're generating is really only recent decade loyalties. You've got guys coming from Ford to Dodge, very rarely, but in some cases you get GM guys make the switch over. But a lot of times the Ford guys are the ones that are moving or had moved over to Dodge because it was something cool, new. It was muscle car. It was doing all of that. Well, now they've had their muscle cars for a while. They're getting a little bit stale, and they're looking at Ford, and they're seeing this new innovation. They're seeing what's coming down the line here. And these are all car folks. These guys and gals want to make their cars fast. They want a hot rod. And although Dodge does that pretty well, they've been doing the same thing over and over again, and they're selling a lifestyle, not a product at this point. And a lot of folks find that very hollow. Harley-Davidson made a business model of this, and it works for a short amount of time. It's good in the short run, but it doesn't work long term if you're not bringing something innovative, new, exciting to the table. You have to remember that Mopar is doing a fantastic job, or has done a fantastic job, of selling people their grandfather's hot rod. That stuff only lasts for so long. And if you're not reinvigorating the product line, and if you're not doing something to bring in the youth are going to get sick and tired of driving their dad's car or their grandpa's car. They want something of their own, which is something that Mustang has been doing. Even though it does have that retro style to it, it still has a lot of modern tweaks to it. It's got a lot of modern technology in it. So you have kind of a classic body style. And if you look at one of the new Mustangs and just silhouette them with a 70 fastback, it's eerie how close they actually are. But they have all the new technology. And what's been the whole, backyard, conversation? Man, if I could just get an old school car with modern technology in it. Well, that's what the Mustang is. The Dodge is old school platform with old school engine in it. Now, makes a lot of power and it goes like hell, and that's a fantastic thing. I'm not knocking it, but at some point, Dodge has got to understand that its loyalty has a shelf life. Or let me refresh this. The loyalty has a shelf life, and if they can't get it right, why should those that have remained loyal stick around? Case in point, I keep bringing this up, but Dodge has got this nasty habit of screwing up with their marketing. Hey, Dodge, B. Mason here. You need some help with the marketing department. Hit me up. It's kind of what I do. Product placing, pricing, promotion. That's what I do kind of for a living. And I'm kind of a big fan of my own voice. Hit me up. I got some pointers for you. At any rate, getting back to it, how in the actual hell do you have a print ad that I saved, by the way, the only muscle car sold with drag radials, and it's the super stock. The 1320 is still around, blood pumping through its veins. Wasn't that the car that you were marketing as the absolute answer for the grassroots racer? That was your grassroots hot rod, and then you completely forget about it? Are you kidding me? How in the hell do you do that? How do you literally forget about it? You can't do that. Anyway, it's one of those slip-ups that absolutely strips all of the street cred out of the brand. You remember that whole thing? You used to see it like probably on your granddad's wall or something like that. 1,000 attaboys can be completely wiped out by one aw shit, right? This is that aw shit, okay? And it's happened a couple of times. And y'all know the other one I'm going to talk about, the elephant ad, where it was the elephant footprint squashing out the cat paws, the cat claws. You can't do that. This it's not even a car, it's a motor, it's an engine. Are you flipping kidding me? By the way, one that didn't do all that hot. Aluminum blocks don't, twisty, boom, boom. Anyway, not to keep beating this dead horse, but the horse just won't die. That seems to be the problem. Because next they bring out the super stock. And the super stock, wow, super stock. It's a bunch of recycled demon technology. It's like demon light. Great. Demon light. Sounds fantastic. The only issue here is that any garden variety red eye will give it all the hell it can handle. You get the point that I'm making here. Dodge has got to freshen up the lineup. And it can't keep throwing everybody a Hellcat derivative without giving something to the guys in the NA crowd. Do something with the 5.7 for crying out loud. make that a little bit more competitive performance-wise. Do something with the 392. I know that there's been some operating system changes, and the cars do run better, by the way. Regardless of what they show on the dyno, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the newer operating system cars, like 19 and up, do run better. But we've got to see something coming from them, because without that innovation, the attention spans of folks are just, it's not as long as they think that it is. And this brand marketing, as opposed to product marketing, or promoting synergy between branding and the product, without that, maybe it was right for Stellantis to dissolve SRT. Maybe they could see what was happening. Maybe they had some real car guys and they're going, how can you screw this up? How can you possibly, like, this is snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Like, they have handed you a ham sandwich creator's kit, and you've put the bread straight up and down, a piece of meat on the top, and you put the other piece of bread on your forehead. That's basically how that sandwich got made, as far as I was seeing it, as an extremely loyal brand activist. So anyway, hopefully that answers the question. Sam saying, I should have saved my pennies and either done an Allison swap. Oh, he's talking about his trans. Yeah, for sure. Superior Fit saying mid-pipe, diff brace, drive shaft, PCM unlock, pulley, spark plugs, dyno tune, but no plugs. That sound about right? Yeah, you don't need plugs for that. Mid-pipe, maybe. Diff brace, yeah. Drive shaft, you probably may not need it at that power level, but probably good. Just get one that is like the DSS drive shaft with CV joints on both ends. That would be the way I would go if you get a drive shaft. PCM unlock, obviously, to go along with the pulley. Obviously, it's injectors. Do not let them do a damn thing to that car at that level without putting injectors. I don't care what anybody tells you. You don't have to worry about fuel injectors? Really? Yeah, you do. You do. You're putting injectors in the car. If you don't put injectors in the car, all bets are off, brother. Just get ready, because things probably won't go well long term. Robert's checking and saying hi. Hey, Robert. X is saying, where's the bleeder valve? Everyone on the forum says just keep pressing it and the clutch, but I've done that thousands of times by now. I think that it's at the bottom. I haven't seen it. Honestly, I haven't even messed with a manual. The only manual I've even done anything with was a manual Hellcat, and it was all together. And I was showing somebody where the restrictor, the restrictor is in the clutch line to remove it. But man, I don't even know if you can get to a bleeder. You can just keep kicking it. It typically takes a lot, but there should. Oh, you know what? That system doesn't have a bleeder, I don't think. So I had installed a bleeder. I forgot about this completely. I had actually installed a bleeder, an easy bleeder, on my 04 Z06, and they use they basically the same kind of a setup. But that's right. I don't think that they've got one. Can't tell you, buddy. Sorry, it's been a while since I've messed with it. I can tell you where that restriction is. It's at the coupling, but yeah, that sucks. But the other way you can do it, though, is if you just keep cycling it. And it might take you about 100 kicks, though, to get it to bleed out. Sorry about that, bud. It's been so long since I messed with one of the manual cars. Nick's saying, thanks, B. Thank you, Nick. Modern's asking, should I keep stock compression lower to 9.5-ish or raise it over stock? Again, pro-charged application. Man, here's my thing with that. Damn. All right, so if you're going to build it, I would assume if you're going to build it, maybe the first question I have is, do you have access to E85? If you have access to E85, I would say leave it at stock compression and run somewhere around 8 pounds, 9 pounds of boost with it. it'll be real happy around there with the 85. If you don't, 9.5 to 1. Oh God. Okay, so yeah, 9.5 to 1 might be a good idea. Here's the problem. I don't like low compression centrifugal supercharged cars. The reason why I don't like them is they are dead until about 4,000 RPM. They are absolutely turds because you're really not building any real cylinder pressure to talk about until about 3,500 to 4,000 RPM. The downside is that they're very soft under, another downside I should say is that they're very soft under light throttle applications. One of the complaints that you'll hear guys talk about, guys that had 392 powered vehicles, say you had a 392 Charger and you picked up a Hellcat Charger, one of the things that they'll notice right away is that it loses a lot of that snappiness, that whack that you get with a 392. You'll lose that with the Hellcat because it's 9.5 to 1 compression. It's a lower compression engine. So the combination that I would do is I would leave it stock compression, run 7.5 pounds of boost through it. You should be in good shape. It'll be a conservative tune. You can always tune it with E85. You can have an E85 tune at that point, and at least you'll retain some of the snappiness and the drivability. I can't tell you, I've driven so many ProCharge cars that I can't count them. And the only ones that I actually liked were all the higher compression combinations. The ones that were lower compression, when at least up to the point that they were put on E85, were just dogs, man. I'll be honest with you. You've got to pump that thing. You've got to add at least another 2 to 3 pounds of boost really to make up for that loss in compression. It's just not worth it. The only caveat to that is unless you're going to be running E85, now you can get away with the higher compression as well. So if you're going to be running E85 anyway, you want the higher compression because it's going to make the combination more efficient. Keep this in mind. When you run higher compression, one of the things that you won't have is that you won't have as high of a boost level, but your inlet charge will be lower because your boost is lower. So kind of makes the tuning a little bit easier. I know it sounds a little bit counterintuitive. You go, well, the cylinder is compressing the air and that's going to create heat. Yeah, I get that, but it's going to be doing that anyway. The main thing is that your inlet charge is going to be cooler. Hang on a second now. Whoa, wait. Superior, thank you very much. Saying, thank you for the contribution to the cause. Saying, thanks. Now I just may get mid pipes in tune and keep warranty. Probably your best bet. Look, man. Well, if you're getting mid pipes, if you're talking about, the tune is going to kill the warranty, though. Here's the thing. It's the tune that will kill the warranty. But I will tell you that if you just get mid pipes and have a conservative tune with the car, it's really not going to put it in a position to get hurt, usually. Most guys, when they tune the cars, a lot of folks will say it's, when you tune a Hellcat, it's actually getting a little bit safer because you're richening them up. A lot of people don't realize this. Hellcats are actually really lean from the factory. It's just the way that they're tuned. So they benefit from the extra fuel, and, I can't see where that would do anything to, cause harm. And with my tune in Revlon, I know you guys don't believe this, but the only place that it has any timing, and there's no timing in partial throttle in that car at all. And the only areas where that car has any timing is literally just to accommodate my transmission tune. That's it. There's nothing else in that tune in terms of timing. It's mainly fueling. So I'd say you're good to go there. And again, you're not going to be adding 2, 3, 4 degrees of timing. I mean, if you add anything, it might be a degree of timing, and that's at the most. I mean, I don't go nuts with timing. You don't have to. I've proven that, and I've proven it over and 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 over again. And any tuner that's been around these things long enough will know how to, blend in that fuel, the power enrichment side, and it'll be good. So just, I want you to know that if you tune it, you will throw the 1405 code and the dealership will see that. But if you go about it the right way, you'll have a combination that, oh, somebody said not to Velocicito. By the way, as an aside, we have had some of the prettiest weather down here. Well, except for Friday, the night that I was going to go racing, it rained. Of course it did. And at least where I was, and anyway, long story short, Velocicito is opening up. The boys are getting out, they're going to get after it. So if you hear that going on in the background, where the shop is basically it's on the way to Velocicito. And so you'll hear all kinds of stuff. You might hear like a big diesel running through there. You'll hear bikes, trucks, cars, all that kind of stuff. You'll hear that come through there. But hopefully that I appreciate that, Spirit. Thank you very much for the contribution to the cause. Modern Red, thank you very much. Saying thanks, brother. Can do E85, but it's not consistent. Probably running Sunoco 260 GT Plus. A good fuel. 260 GT Plus is good. It's just got a high ethanol content. That's its big claim to fame. That and MS109 are both high ethanol content fuels. Now, the 260 GT Plus is unleaded, so that's good. It's safe to run in your car, no problem. The only thing that I'll warn you about on 260 Plus is that because of the extra ethanol content, it does have the extra octane, but unless you've got the timing in the car, you probably won't be taking advantage of the extra octane. Personally, I like 260 GT. As a matter of fact, I'm using an old bucket of 260 GT as my trash can. So anyway, that for anybody that's ever wondered if I ran race gas, what was it? The 260 GT is what I ran for a little bit. And I ran it when we were seeing what kind of gains race gas would give with this absolute stock fueling, stock tune on the Hellcats. And it was kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. If you ran race gas with the stock tune or added fuel with 93 octane, it ended up basically being roughly the same. And so the short-term knock retard was all but done away with when we started running the 260 GT. I like the 260 GT because, number one, it's just got less ethanol in it, and for whatever that's worth. But two, it mimics what you might expect pump gas to be. In other words, that roughly 10% ethanol content. So, I don't know. I guess there's like maybe a familiarity there for the car. Stoichiometric values are going to be slightly different with the 260 GT Plus, but it's nothing that your car can't compensate with. So anyway, yeah, the either way you go though, you'll be in good shape. But if you tune on GT Plus, I mean, you can throw another couple of degrees in there on top of like what a normal 93 octane tune would be. You can give it, if the car likes it, I mean, you can give it more timing, only if the car wants it, right? Because, I mean, I've tuned stuff to where keep throwing timing at it and there was no power gain, but you will at least have a safer fuel and a more consistent fuel, which is a lot more important. But thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Oh, Monterey, thanks again. Saying thanks, brother. Oh, sorry. Already got that one. Got another one here. Superior, man. Thanks again, brother. Appreciate that. Asking, do I need a tune with Stainless Works mid pipes? Will engine light come on? You will need a tune. Anytime you are removing the cats. Now, we're talking about the catalytic converters, and we're not talking about the actual just cat back. For that, you're never going to throw a code. You can put whatever you want back there. As long as it bolts in, you're going to have a problem with that. But if you're talking about removing catalytic converters, you will run into a problem with the check engine light. But I'm going to tell you something that you might not believe. So Revlon doesn't have cats. And I have done so much testing with catalytic converters, both in the car and not in the car. I've done dyno testing and I've done track testing. I've done street hit testing with this, timestamp chasing, basically. Before Draggy had come out, I was just chasing a timestamp on my data logger. You may be surprised to find out that leaving the cats in the car will actually, in some cases, run better than without cats. Now, if you're getting the car tuned anyway, you can adjust the catalytic converter over temp parameters to where it'll be safe-ish, but you can keep the car from going into cat over temp mode, which is just shorthand from saying the thing will throw a ton of fuel at it to try to cool off the catalytic converters. But again, I'll tell you that whether it's naturally aspirated, Hellcats, perfect example of this. My buddy Robert Eden, his car ran 970s and 980s, almost like you could set your freaking watch to it. Still has factory catalytic converters. Obviously, the Demons all have factory catalytic converters. And Ray has run two different Demons deep into the 977 and 978 with the stock catalytic converters. On the dyno, it made, at these power levels, it made no difference leaving the cats in and not having them in. And in fact, DA for DA, leaving the cats in the car, and it actually ran a little bit better. A lot of conjecture on that, by the way, I'll admit. But anyway, depending on your power level, the cats aren't going to hurt anything. And really up to the point where you're running in the 9s and say 138, 140 miles an hour, catalytic converter, you can just leave them in the car. You should be fine. And I say that not because I'm like, catalytic converter, man. I'm not that guy. I'm just saying that I've run the cars at the track. I've had the cars on the dyno. I've tried to, I've tried to make them run quicker with no cats in it. And it just, I was like, there's only so much of this I can try to do before I get bored with trying to make a car pick up half a freaking tenth with a part that I just, it didn't make any more power with. So anyway, kind of a, fun fact for you with the cats on these things. And again, thank you all very much for the contribution, guys. I appreciate that a lot. I really do. Let me get back up here. Bear with me, folks. Bear with me. Let me get back up here. Let's see. Oh, okay. Sam's saying, I'm thinking about buying a 5.7 Charger, all-wheel drive, and adding a cam and throttle body. I'm just wondering how common it is to see an all-wheel drive build. Very, very rarely will you see one. Cam's got saying, I'm getting ready to pick up a set of 315 3520 Nitto NT05s for the rear end of my 5.7 Challenger. Have you had any experience with those, particularly in the wet? The NT05s aren't that bad in the wet, although they're not as good as the Tri-5 R2. But they're fine. I mean, they're just, the thing is that you've got to be cognizant of the fact that you don't have a really deep tread block back there. So obviously if it's raining, slow down a little bit. And y'all have seen my video with me running the Tri-5 R2s in the wet. And I mean, again, it just floors me that nobody ever mentioned the fact that I'm in the left-hand lane passing people in the wet with those tires. So just be mindful of the vehicle that you're driving. You're driving a vehicle that makes a lot of power. Be easy with that throttle application, and you should be okay with those things. You know what's weird too? Is it just, am I losing my mind, or is there just not a 305 3520 in the NT05s? Is there not one? If there isn't, I really would like for there to be. Just saying. I mean, if they said we make them now, I'd be the first one to buy a set for my car. Sam saying doesn't have any problem finding 93 and 95 in my state. Good deal. Ken saying you're spot on about red eyes. They are great in the 8th mile. Trying to convince my good friend to get 309 for his Hellcat. He needs to. I mean, the car should have come with a 309 at least as an option. There's no reason in the world why it shouldn't. There's no real difference in fuel economy, and I mean with the throttle being reset or with a pedal commander or a pedal box, you get all your throttle response back. It'll be fine. Zerel's asking, what about the super stock? I don't know. I mean, I ask. Shouldn't say this. Ask Ron Silva how my ass looks. So if y'all don't know, at the track rental, I was telling folks, look, I'm going for the Hellcat record. If you're going for a record, you get a solo pass. Well, I guess Ron didn't hear me. Ron lines up right next to me, keeping in mind that Ron's super stock is the record holder. I think he ran a 994 at my track rental. But that being said, there's a difference between running a number and running a race. And the second he lined up next to me, I quit worrying about running a number, and it was a race at that point. So and my buddy Chris gave him shit about this all the rest of the day. Anyway, we're sitting there, and I said, you son of a bitch, I'm going for, okay, fine. So sitting there, yellow, and I cut just like, I think what did I cut on him? Oh, I cut an 069 on him. I cut an 069 light. I remember that. Cut an 069. I think he was just asleep at the tree. I get out on him, and he couldn't get around me. Now, I think he went a 10-0 on that pass. I might have gone a 10-19, a 10-21 or something like that, a low 10 or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the car ran. He never got around me. And I damn near, if he would have been just a little bit further in back of me, I'd have popped that hazard on him, but he wasn't behind me enough to where he'd even seen it. So anyway, but his car, they're fast, they're good, they do a lot of neat things, but the super stock is just it's a red eye with a little bit of added whatever to it. It's a red eye with some gadgets and gizmos. That's really about as much as you can say about it. Sovereign saying he's back. I like it. Broke saying, thanks for all you do. You offer great advice and knowledge using your own time. Greatly appreciate your gift. Yeah, thank you very much, man. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Gives us all something to do, man. I enjoy it. Love hanging out with you guys. Jonathan saying, hey, B, checking in. How would one obtain the specs and prices from Dr. Diff's throttle bodies for the 392? You have to call Dr. Diff for the prices, but the specs are, it's a chunk of billet that's been cut into the shape of a throttle body, and it's 85 millimeters. And I can show you basically what one looks like. This is my template that I use. This is the original prototype, the piece of billet aluminum that was used for making that throttle body. So there you go. Dr. Diff exclusive throttle body. But it's an 85 millimeter billet. And they're really pretty. The new ones are really, really pretty. Tux is asking, are those big wheels behind you sitting on the floor real and used for real cars? You talking about these guys over here? They're absolutely real, my friend. As a matter of fact, those are a set of ET Street R. They are 305, 45, 17s on a set of Forge Line D5 wheels. Those are the rear wheels and tires that I use on the Hellcat when I go to the drag strip. And if I'm doing testing, I've got another set of wheels and tires that I use for those. Those are a set of rake loose wheels that I use on the testing sets. And man, the reason why I use a different set of wheels for the testing is because they're rake loose wheels, and I don't really care if they get beat up. So there's that. Sovereign saying Viper needs to make a comeback. Nope. Not the way that it was. I've got some unique and some not safe for work analogies for the Viper that we will have to save for one of the After Dark shows, which I am going to be looking to bring those back, by the way. And if you're not aware of what the After Dark shows were, it would be Mopar Chat or Motor Chat After Hours or After Dark. And that one is the language is a little bit more colorful. There's a little bit, a little bit different side of me will come out for the After Hours show. But yeah, the Viper, the way that it sat, had a lot of flaws. I mean, a lot of flaws. And some of it was the platform itself. Some of it was the fact that the driving experience just really wasn't all that great with the Viper. And although it is the sexiest looking thing sitting in the parking lot, it wasn't all that much fun to drive for a lot of folks. And because of that, the Corvette basically had its way with it. And the issue is that the Viper could never really honestly compete with the Corvette. And because of that, and because of its, not only was it incapable of competing with the Corvette, it was just not viable as a sports car, supercar, muscle car. There was just no really good place to place it. It fell out of favor with a lot of folks, myself included, and I hate to say that because, as you guys know, I've owned 3 Vipers over my lifetime and absolutely loved them. There was a lot of quirks about the Viper that I actually liked, but what some people think is a bit of a quirk, other people will find unimaginably annoying, or at least uncomfortable. And so because of that, and because of that consistent consensus, the Viper was basically rendered non-viable a couple of years before 2017. So will it make a comeback? From what I was told, it was in development. But the issue is we don't know in what form it would make a comeback. We'll have to see. Destroyer saying, "Sup, Professor Mason? Sup, Destroyer?" Destroyer saying, "Push the like button to hit it." Dan saying, "Boop, ta-da, got the thumbs up. Thank you, buddy." Sovereign Knight saying, "Maybe an electric CUDA on a new platform." It's not outside the realm of possibility. And guys, listen, if you're worried about what electric vehicles are going to look like or run like, all you got to do is look at the e-tron or the Taycan GT Turbo, whatever they call it. E-tron is butch as hell looking. That's right now one of my favorite looking cars out there. I don't care if it's electric or not. Thing looks the part. And of course, the Taycan Turbo, whatever they're going to call it, that's the 750 horsepower. They're both basically on the same platform. Here's the twist. Those two have transmissions. They have a 2-speed transmission. And because of that, not only do they accelerate like a bat out of hell until 110, 120 miles an hour, but they can shift gears. And when they shift gears, that thing's it starts pulling even harder again on the big end. Those cars mile an hour the way that a gasoline powered car mile an hour. And that's been the Achilles heel of the electric platform for a lot of the performance guys. Say, man, the thing accelerates like a banshee to this mile per hour that is just not really high enough, like 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour. After that, they fall off significantly. And the reason for that is the load is gone. There's no more load on that motor, and electric motors that when they're under the highest load, they make the most power. That's when their highest amp draw is. So when you shift, it throws that thing under a higher load, and it's now making a ton more power. Amp draw goes up, and it starts trucking on the back half. And again, as transmissions are built that can handle the type of torque that these electric motors put out, you're going to start seeing more and more of now the 2-speed, okay, and then a 3-speed, maybe a 4-speed. I don't know at what point it stops being necessary. I guess it just depends on what speed you're looking to go. But at that point, you just put a transmission together to handle whatever torque load is going to be needed to get to that mile per hour that you're looking to hunt for. But the reality is that that's the future of those EVs, and if that's what they do with it, then that would be killer. I mean, that would be like the absolute ultimate, a 650 or a 700 horsepower variant, 750, 800 horsepower variant, whatever the number is, 1,000 horsepower, could be anything. If it runs and does what the e-tron and the Taycan can do, that answers the question in terms of acceleration, 0 to 130, 0 to 150. All of those numbers start to look a lot more like gasoline powered cars. Now we're talking. See, the thing is that a lot of folks were, they're looking at Tesla and they're going, oh, well, yeah, it's really fast, but it can't mile an hour. I'll just blow right past it on the highway. Like, yeah, it's not going to last forever. That's true for some of them, and they will absolutely redefine your way of thinking when it comes to acceleration. But just imagine those cars with a second speed, and that acceleration continues on the big end, and that's where a lot of guys' egos are going to be put in check real quick by these things running around on all those, magic electrons. Let's see. Speedfreak saying, hey, B, as the 392 doesn't make much more power on a cam swap, does the LS do better on a cam upgrade? And if so, why? The LS7 sounds amazing with a large cam. They do. So one of the reasons why, there's several reasons why the 392 just doesn't go nuts when you put a cam in it. Number one, you can't really put a huge cam in a Hemi because, well, number one, those cars are typically heavy, and big cams kill low-end power in general. When you couple that with the fact, and you need the low-end power to get those cars moving, couple that with the understanding that these heads flow like crazy, 340 CFM with the 6.2 and the 392's heads. When you have heads that flow like that, any slight variance in the cam is going to exacerbate that trait. In that, if a little bit more cam will make it a lot more lazy down low if the cam events aren't really planned out just right. The lobe shape has to be right. There's a lot. When I put together a cam profile, it's like, damn, I got to juggle all kinds of weird things going on with these Hemis. Whereas the wedge motor, which is more thermodynamically efficient than the Hemi that we're working with here, for those things, you just keep throwing cam at it and it keeps picking up power on the big end, sacrificing it doesn't matter down low because you're just going to spin this thing to the moon. But you've got different intake manifolds that you can go to that will help to basically complete the package, if you will. Problem with the 392 is that you don't have companies like Fast or anybody else for that matter, other than Edelbrock and Holley making intake manifolds for them. And even those are still, they're not variants of this manifold. This manifold does great, but look at the length of these runners. It starts here. This is this well right here in the plenum. That's where the bell mouth starts. So if you're looking at this runner right here, it starts there, goes around. It's this one right here, by the way, that you're looking at now. See how it just starts there, comes around, keeps going, and then dumps out right there. The runners are real long in these things. Even when they switch over to short runner, it helps, but it doesn't do a whole lot for you mainly in that you've got the snout that can be a bit restricted. There's a lot going on with these manifolds. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that the combination, you can make some good power with them, but you just can't make a lot more power with them. And that's really more to the point. The cam that comes in the 392 is actually kind of an interesting camshaft. It's got a lot of lift for the amount of duration that it's got. It's like on the intake side, 577 is the lift. So just a little, almost 6/10 of an inch worth of lift, but it's only got like 215 degrees of duration. So it's just like bang, like that. I mean, the thing just rips the cam or rips the valve open and then slams it shut. So it's just a weird cam, but it's kind of a higher performance cam, and it works really well with heads that flow so much. You got an intake manifold that is trying to generate as much velocity as it can. So when you've got cams that are actually pretty aggressive from the factory, but the weird thing about it is they have a very wide lobe separation angle, it would make for a pretty interesting positive displacement camshaft. As a matter of fact, it's not that different from the Hellcat camshaft. The Hellcat camshaft is basically the same on the intake side with just more exhaust duration. But that's one of the reasons why. I mean, the camshaft is just significantly more aggressive with the 392 than it is on the LS. And then at some point, you know, if you're starting off low, you put a more aggressive camshaft in an LS, displacement for displacement, it'll pick up to the point of where a 392 is, and then from there, more camshaft, you'll just get more power out of the thing. You put a FAST intake on it, or you know, any of the more commonly used intake manifolds on those cars, like a TBSS intake for the LS stuff, or an LS3 intake or whatever. And those intakes just do a really good job of moving air. So, with a ported manifold and a cam and, a few other things, you can typically get them to get up around 500-ish horsepower to the rear wheels. And it's at that point that you start to maybe really sacrificing the lower RPM power and throttle response for upper RPM power doesn't necessarily look like as attractive as a compromise when the cars are that heavy. Also, there's just more, there's more out there for the LS. They just tend to do better because they do a better job of packaging than the Hemi does in a lot of ways too. What I mean by that is headers, better packaging with the headers, better packaging with the intake itself with the runner designs, things like that. What I would like to see is just a different variant of the 392 intake, just with slightly shorter, slightly larger runners. I think if this intake here had those provisions, it'd be right up there with the LS3 intake, and it would make, plenty of power. And these do make plenty of power. Keep in mind that, a lot of folks don't realize that even with like the Sniper cam, that's a 500 horsepower to the rear wheels cam, and 500 horsepower to the rear wheels is damn near 600 horsepower at the flywheel. That's not too shabby for a bunch of stock parts. So, but again, you don't want to get into the habit of trading off so much power down low, trying to get power up top, because again, it doesn't just kill the wide open throttle power, it kills everything under light throttle loads. So anyway, I hope that answers the question. So I'm going to say Dodge Challenger will never get old to me. That's good though, man. Rusto Mods, I like it. KZ1000 said, I'd like to see Mopar and Chevy build a dual overhead cam 4-valver like Ford, something fresh. Yeah, so the thing is, man, a lot of guys have been saying that at this stage of the game, it's about time for the pushrod stuff to come to an end. Maybe it is. You can't argue that it's a cost-based thing anymore either, because look at how many Mustangs sell and look at what they sell for in terms of money. So I don't know, there's that to consider. I mean, you can't really have that conversation when you look at the sales leader in the segment, so to speak, and that's well, basically what they're selling is that dual overhead cam platform. I'll have to agree with that. You know, the thing is that you can't give up too much displacement though, because you want to still have that muscle feel. But, you know, a 6 liter or a 6.2 liter dual overhead cam type of a platform would be really badass. And it would be super cool if you think about it, because that would have the echo of the M156 AMG C63 engine that kind of was the swan song for, well, it was the swan song for Mercedes AMG NA platforms. So it would be kind of a cool full circle if it were a 6.2 liter dual overhead cam. Technically, that platform has already had that engine. And it came in the form of the AMG M156 V8, which I absolutely loved. Hang on a second here. Hang on. Shawnee is in the mix. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Asking thoughts on E85, cats or no cats, almost no exhaust smell. I would say, you know, so with E85, you have a higher exhaust mass than you do with gasoline. And because you're putting 30% more fuel in the combustion chamber, you're just going to have more fuel mass or exhaust mass because you're putting more mass in the exhaust or in the cylinder. At that stage of the game, based on however much your air you're moving, how much exhaust you're moving, the cats might become a restriction. But again, with these modern catalytic converters, if you're naturally aspirated, I don't think you're ever going to get to a level where you will actually tax a set. Even the stock style ceramic biscuits that are used, they're the 400 cell per inch biscuits, flow extremely well. Now you can always make the switch over to metal substrate cats. That would be the 200 cell per inch, and the smaller the number means the bigger the cells and the more the flow, by the way. So if you went that route, you know, that would probably be the route that I would recommend. And I know that's what Quick Brick did with his car. So definitely something to do in terms of keeping it green. But the E85 is already pretty green by comparison. I don't know. I would say that you would be okay probably up to about that 550 horsepower to the rear wheels range. And then from there, you might see some kind of a level of a restriction. Only, well, no, I can't even say that, because again, you go back and take a look at, you know, Eden's car, and that thing is running 9s with factory catalytic converters still on the car. And no, they're not gutted. They're actual catalytic converters. In fact, his car is quiet. But thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Let's see. Hang on here. Mustang Light saying, "What up, Dom? What's up, man?" Tux is asking, "Have you ever driven a convertible?" Yes, I have quite a few of them. Drove one today, my wife's Jeep. My third dream car is a convertible. It's the 1996 Chrysler Sebring. I knew a bunch of people that had those. My favorite convertible, favorite old car. Those were actually very popular for a long time. Neat little car, but yes, I have. My AC Cobra was a convertible, and let's see, what other? My Samurai was a convertible, and what else did I have? No, the C4 had a target top, and I had the top off of that thing all the time. And of course, my wife's Jeep, which I mentioned. I'm sure there's a couple others in there too, but yeah, absolutely I have. Good question. Let's see. Mustang Lab 302 saying, "What have you been doing to the 351 Stang?" Well, Nothing, because I grenaded the clutch in the Mustang. So the Mustang is on timeout right now. I've got to get the clutch, the flywheel, and all the rest of the stuff and get that swapped out. I have resigned myself to the fact that I am not doing that job. There is no way I am crawling underneath the thing. I learned how to install clutches with Fox Body Mustangs on my back when I was a kid. Not happening this time. I'm going to be using that old green tool on this thing. I've got to order the parts, and I haven't ordered the parts yet. That's really on me. Summer Night saying 351 Cleveland or Windsor. It depends on what I'm building. If I'm going to build a stroker motor. See, the thing is that the Windsor at this stage of the game, the aftermarket heads, you can make whatever power number you want with a 351 Windsor, and they're a lot easier to get parts for. The Cleveland, the 4V heads with compression, probably one of the most powerful small blocks that was ever made in that era, from the factory, of course. So there's that. I don't know. The Windsor is a lot easier to get parts for, and I would probably say that Windsor with a lot of aftermarket stuff would be my way to go. But it's tough to argue with that Cleveland, though, especially if you've got some compression behind it. Sovereign saying, we need a wide body 5.7. Probably sell a ton of them. Sovereign saying, hit the like button. Yeah, hit the like button, guys. Junior saying, no wide body for the 5.7. Keep the performance trim separate from the rest. I don't want my 6.4 looking like a 5.7. Well, that went away with the SS, though, so... or whatever they called it. Ken saying, laziness and greed. Should have added aluminum parts, interior upgrades every 3 years. Could have added a retro Barracuda, smaller, lighter vehicle than the Challenger and Charger. You know, it's funny. I don't know why they haven't. The jacked up thing about all of that, though, is that just how much talk there was about the CUDA. Like, where did somebody just start a rumor and let it ride? That rumor seemed to have more staying power, and it speaks to the optimism and at least the mindset of most Mopar fans. I mean, they want to see that, they wanted to see something like that come down the pipe. All the exciting cars that had come from Dodge, it just seemed like it would be a shoe-in for something like the CUDA, but it just never did materialize. And again, that's a real bummer. And Dodge has got a pretty good track record of bringing, these concept cars to life. The Viper, the Prowler, the Challenger, all of these, the Charger for that matter, all of these cars that got such, they got everybody riled up when they were concept cars. Dodge just kind of made them. And when the rumors of the CUDA were floating around, I think a lot of folks were getting to the point where they wanted to see something different. And now, this deep into the 2021 model year, I mean, we're already into March, they're talking about the 2023s possibly being the last model year, but man, I don't know. I'd like to see something new. Give us something to look forward to and not have everything be just the LX platform, because other manufacturers are going to start investing and coming out with newer stuff. So you're going to need to see that sooner than later. Hang on just a second. Dr. Diff, thank you very much. Saying, can anybody else imagine B. Mason and a Samurai? I loved that Samurai, man. And then Superior Fit and Body saying, if I decide to do this package, should I find another since he's not adding upgraded injectors? Yeah, you probably want to look into something different. If you're putting any pulley, I don't care what pulley it is, on your car, you're going to need injectors. I know that because I'm the guy that's looking at the data of my car that doesn't have a pulley, and with proper fueling being what it is and adding the type of fueling that you need to add to these things with 93 octane, I'm seeing injector duty cycles deep into the 90% range. Now, people will tell you, well, there's overhead and all this. You've got room No, you don't. And so, yeah, if you're not seeing a different injector being offered up in that package, that's somebody trying to get away with something. And I don't agree with that at all. You need to have an injector, and it would probably do you good to have either 750s. 750s for a small pull, 8,000s for sure, but 750s will cover you up to around, 14, 15 pounds of boost. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Div's saying he uses fuel injector connection. Yep. There's two that I recommend. I like fuel injector connection and Fuel One. Fuel One is a local guy here in Houston. Keith is the owner, and he flow balances and does basically everything. Cleans, does everything with those Bosch style fuel injectors. So definitely something to consider mandatory, in my opinion. Let's see. Roddy's saying, why do people talk down RTs so much? Because that's human nature, man. It's a bummer. If it weren't for the RTs, you wouldn't have SRTs. So, if anything, you should be praising them. But it's just, sibling rivalry, and they're underrated. The problem with the RT is that cars like the Mustang and the Camaro exist. There's nothing that really competes with them realistically in the marketplace in terms of being a low-cost V8. The Mustang, you don't have to spend much more for, and you get a faster car, but the difference is you don't get the room that you get with the RT. And so anyway, I'm not really sure why. I've always really liked the RTs. They drive great. They're fun to drive, and they got all the sound and everything else. In fact, you can build a fast RT, you can build a show RT, you can do whatever you want with those things. It's got the V8 sound. It's got everything to it. I don't know why people dog it. I like them. And again, Superior, man, thank you very much, but I appreciate it, that contribution. Sovereign saying, not sure. If anything, it will be the last V8 to end up on the chopping block. That's true. Dodge will be the last holdout, I'm sure. Madara is saying, I'd like to see some crazy be done with the 6-cylinder side from Chrysler, maybe a turbo inline 6. That's, something like the Barra, like a Barra equivalent would be sick to death right there. Oh, X-Cash saying, okay, I'll just deal it until it's time to change the clutch. Yeah, you might be able to kick that thing enough times to where it'll bleed out. I know I had to do that several times with the Vet. Superior saying, since he does not want to add injectors, oh, should I find another guy? Yeah, I would. Give Dr. Differential a shot. He can do remotes. It just depends on what part of the country you're in. Roddy's saying, I see more hate on RTs than V6s, because V6s, you can't punch any lower than a V6. And RTs are just, it's a V8 powered car, and so because it's V8 powered, people give it shade for no real reason. Ken saying that Dodge nailed it with the retro look on the Challenger. Why didn't they add more retro styled vehicles? Imagine a retro Dart that attracted younger buyers. So the reason why they didn't do any more with it was they had pretty much exhausted platforms. They didn't have a platform to build it off of, unfortunately. But that's why there wasn't another retro style vehicle, is because really they kind of exhausted that option with the Challenger, to be honest with you. Oh, hang on just a second. Time out. Hang on. Captain Scat 345 saying the B Mason Continuing Education Fund. Thank you for all you do. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you, Captain Scat. Thank you very much for the contribution. Very much, my friend. Very much appreciated. All you guys, man. Oop, hang on. Where did I miss it? Superior Fit is asking if I just do mid pipes. If you just do mid pipes, just keep in mind, if you're talking mid pipes, typically most guys are talking about the cat pipe itself or cat delete pipe. You will need a tune to turn off the catalytic converters, basically, or to allow the computer to not look for the catalytic converters. HU37 saying Cooks claims you won't lose power with their green cats. They have a 300 cell high flow metallic substrate and are EPA approved. Yeah, you won't lose any power with those. They're expensive, but they're worth it. I hate a car that sinks. The only issue, you got to be careful now, because size matters when it comes to catalytic converters. And if you've got a 400 cell cat that's about that big around, that's what the stock cats are like. A 300 cell can only really be no smaller than about that big around, because you figure you're losing. I mean, you've got a 300 cell in terms of 400 cell, but you need to keep the same amount of open area. So you can't just go, oh, that cat's this big, 300 cell, it's this big. No, it would be less flow because it's smaller. The more cells you have, the more you can flow. Given the fact that like a 400 cell is a bunch of little cells, but a big area of them will flow a lot. You know what I mean? So you got to be careful with that. One of the big issues that had come up a long time ago were, I don't know, some manufacturers, somebody screwed up their engineering, but they said, oh yeah, this is a high flow cat. And it was this itty bitty cat. People say, oh, it's a little cat, it's going to be less restrictive. Well, it wasn't. It was a smaller, like a 400 cell catalytic converter biscuit in a smaller area. That means less surface area, which means less flow. So you just got to be careful with that. But a 200 cell metal substrate or a 300 cell metal substrate can be physically smaller, but it can't be tiny. It still needs to have some pretty decent size to it. Robert's asking, best connecting rod bearings for Mala pistons and rods for a 6.4 Hemi. Clevite probably would be my way to go for those. I can't give you an exact part number, and you'd have to, if you had to turn your crank or anything like that, then obviously you go like 10 over on those. But yeah, if you're just building something, typical boost setup, no more than about 25 pounds of boost, then yeah, you'd be fine with those. Sovereign saying, now that's a chunk of aluminum at 85 millimeters. Yeah, he's talking about the throttle body. This is the template that I use for Dr. Differential ported intake manifolds and for the opening, that 85 millimeter opening. And the trick isn't to open up this part. That's easy. The trick is blending all this stuff back in here. That's the, you can see hands are all cut up from porting on this thing because I'm constantly jamming my hands in there and feeling stuff and everything else. Sovereign's asking, you ever going to go to bead locks in the future? No, I'm not making enough power for bead locks, man. Xcash is asking, are 6.4s known for dropping valves? No, they are not. That's just the older 5.7s. Really, I haven't heard anything about the 6.1s doing it. They may have, but no, none of the more modern ones have any indication that was going to be a problem. Sovereign saying the After Dark show seems interesting. Yeah, there was a couple of them that got real interesting. The Wolf saying, I always tell people I like Vipers when someone else is driving it. Very much so. That ACR, though, that's my favorite looking one. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love them. I still love them to this day. I just know that there's a part of me that will always be in love with Vipers. And, I miss my ACR like crazy. But they're certainly not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. HU's hanging out with Sovereign. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Div saying if the Viper were to make a comeback, I personally feel they should go with a Hellcat Red-Eye platform with the 8-speed, or maybe make it interesting and do a 10-speed, leave it rough. So the thing is, it would have to be, you have to have an automatic variant, and you have to make it to where it appeals to both men and women, and that it's easy to be relatable. And that's where the Viper just completely whiffed. I mean, swing and a miss, swing and a miss. And because of that, the car just never really got the traction that the Corvette had. I mean, you're going up against a brand like the Corvette. That's practically, it's a suicide mission unless you have really done your homework. And I mean, Viper did a good job of being an image car, but yeah, God, if they could have just had an automatic. And the thing is that for the price point, based on what the car drove like, some people will argue that it just didn't drive as well as it should have. I don't know about that because that's subjective. But what I will tell you is that, damn, they're good looking. That's all I can say. But yeah, an automatic would have to be in the future. Dr. Diff saying no traction control or ABS as they were. Unfortunately, a lot of them got wadded up because of that. Ask me how I know. VTech saying the new Tesla Plaid Edition and Plaid Plus are going to run low sub 9s quarter according to Tesla. I don't doubt it. Dr. Diff saying sweet smell of E85. To hell with cats. I hear that, man. John's asking, Beacon Evening, what's your take on the Barton shifter on a manual Challenger? I would say that it is a mandatory upgrade. Definitely worth the money. Doc saying, cats now flow a decent amount, although you always stand a risk of cooking them, unluckily with proper tuning, but if you can take them out of the equation, why not? Strictly opinion based. Yeah, I mean, if you can remove them from the equation and tune the car, really the ECU for it, then yeah, that's great. But you know, most of the time, I don't know. Actually, I like the way mine sounds with the cats too. Hang on just a second now. Diversity in comics. Thank you, man. Saying, in case no one noticed, the Challenger and Charger combined still sell really well. That plays a role in them not changing much. At the same time, they've tangibly improved the cars over the last 6 model years. So that's kind of what I've been talking about in terms of being a viable product. And so for the guys that ask, well, why don't they make the Magnum anymore? Well, they don't make the Magnum anymore because nobody bought them. Why don't they make the Viper anymore? Well, they don't make the Viper anymore because nobody bought the thing. The fact of the matter is that they're going to keep selling what the public is buying, and it's obvious that they've struck a chord with the public. And let's not forget something, guys. I mean, let's kind of reel this thing in for a second. Do you want another Mustang? Because that's what the Camaro is. The Camaro has been trying to be more Mustang than Mustang since day one. In fact, you can look this up. One of the things, I don't remember the names of the people or anything like that, but you know, the name Camaro, one of the journalists had asked one of the engineers or product developers at GM, what is a Camaro? And the response was something like, it's a twitchy little creature that eats Mustangs, you know, whatever. You try to be catchy or whatever kind of attempt at humor. So Camaro has been trying to be more Mustang than Mustang for forever. The Challenger, because we're just going to talk about the 2-door variants. By the way, you ever notice that the Challenger is the only 2-door Hellcat anything? It's the only 2-door 392 anything. You ever notice that? Everything else is 4 doors that has the Hot Rod SRT badge on them, except for the Viper, but the Viper's not made anymore. And even that didn't have a 392 or a Hellcat engine. So, see what my point is? Anyway, kind of lost my train of thought. But anyway, the point of all of this is that they will keep making them because the public's buying them, and they're buying them because it is the antithesis to the Mustang. It's not trying to be the Mustang. It's not trying to beat the Mustang at anything. It is doing its own thing. It's big. It's American muscle car styling. It's American muscle car power delivery, by the way. Big torque, lots of tip-in throttle response, big waves of push. That's the American muscle car way of moving down the road. 4 valves, high RPM, big horsepower up top. That's that pony car's way of getting down the road. Challenger's not a pony car. It's a muscle car. Does things differently. Have you seen the size of the thing? I mean, there is that to consider. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's best that Dodge stays in their lane when it comes to this type of stuff, because what ends up happening invariably is if you try to go after the Mustang and be more Mustang than the Mustang, you're going to fail miserably. And I've said this over and over again, you can have a Mustang and a Challenger in your garage and literally bookend a driving experience. Lots of low end throttle response, lots of kick off the line, lots of kick from a tip-in throttle response point of view. Extremely responsive, big, comfortable. That's your Mopar. High winding, high RPM, mile per hour for days. That's your Ford, and you can have your cake and eat it too if you had both of them sitting in your garage. Which is, again, one of the reasons why it's so cool to have a car like the Challenger around. And we're talking just, again, about the two-door variants here. But it's cool to have cars like the Challenger around for that reason. Because if everything is just trying to be more Mustang than the Mustang, then it doesn't really matter which one of the cars you buy. You're going to get more or less the same driving experience. You can say, okay, we can put the 392 in something like the size of a Camaro. Yeah, but here's the problem. If you do that, you're still going to have a vehicle that may or may not be as well balanced. Yeah, we'd all like to know what a 392 would do in a car that isn't shackled with the extra 500, 400, 600 pounds that these Mopars are shouldered with. But it might surprise you in that, does it do any better? Would it do? I mean, it would accelerate really hard, but would it do any better from a roll? Don't know, but I can tell you that it does what it does in the form that it does it very well. And a lot of people like that. They like that big traditional American muscle car, and I think Dodge is going to keep it that way, quite honestly. Let's see. Get back up, y'all. Hang on just a second. Shawnee was going to check in. The Barton is a must-have. Absolutely it is. Let's see. Oh, Shawnee's saying, and Dr. Diff, Shawnee's saying he just went with cats on the Mustang, or just went catless, went E85, and I'm considering long tubes with no cats. I don't think the car will smell bad. Camp Scat's hanging out with Sean. Let's see. Chris saying 392 intake is like long runner Ram Charger intake. You know, I mean, the runner, you know, those runners are about that long. So yeah, in a way, you could almost consider it like that. I mean, they are insanely long, and of course, they go into short runner mode. They're only about that long, but even with that, I mean, they open up and they allow air to come in at the runner on the short side radius. So, I mean, it's not like it's a huge difference, but yeah, there's some trickery going on here, just trying to get cylinder fill at low RPMs. When you have heads that flow the CFM that these heads flow, it's tough to get velocity going, to get that cylinder filled up at low RPM. And it's a Hemi style head, so it's basically a tumble port head at that. So anyway, let's see. Sean's hanging out with Dr. Diff. Sovereign saying, hit that like button. Yeah, hit the like button. Dr. Diff saying, Shawnee with the hookup. Dr. Div saying, just wait till he gets that Joker. Yep. Captain Scott saying, yep, I'm all kinds of excited. Very nice. I love it. Oh, Sean saying, I didn't realize that my 2020 Mustang is actually 307 cubic inches. So, yeah, it uses the GT350 bore sizing. It's a true 5 liter, as a matter of fact. Oh, Sean saying he's still got that Innovators West lower for the Hellcat and aluminum idler pulleys. Y'all hit up Shawnee if you need some parts, y'all. Dr. Diff and Superior, thank y'all very much, guys. I appreciate it. Let's see. Devontae saying, trying to get my 392 faster, not a lot I can think of to do is it's already factory loaded. Yeah, I mean, the thing is they're already fast from the factory. And guys, this is the main thing to consider. When you're talking about the Mopars, these things are drag strip fast from the factory. That means that they are strong from a dig. You put a tire on them, put them on a prepared surface, and they will accelerate like you have no idea. But to do more to them, it's a tough proposition. There are some things you can do to complement what you already have. Again, you know, a good port on the manifold with, you know, an 85 millimeter throttle body can help. But, you know, big gains, you got to start spending some big money for. So, but that's the game we play though, right? Oh, Shawnee's hanging out with Devontae. Oh, he went with underdrive pulleys as well and a tune. Picked up some good power. Blue String's asking, good evening, sir. Is it possible to swap my clutch fan on my 15 Ram to 2012 electric fan setup without setting off CELs? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I know Doc Diff's done a ton of those swaps. So, yes, you can. Doc Diff saying, I use fuel injector connection. Fuel injectors. X is saying, I've been looking for a cheap Geo Tracker Samurai for years. Now everybody wants at least $5,000 for one. Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. And have you seen the price on like CJ5s and CJ7s lately? What the hell is going on with those things, man? That is, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Isn't that crazy? Spears saying, thank you so much. Wish you were closer to Kansas City. No doubt, man. Kansas City's nice. XD45, how many street races have you won? Man, you just don't count those too often. I say you don't count them because I've been in so many, I can't tell you. I would say I've probably won more than I've lost. I mean, it depends on what you're really calling a street race. But from a dig, we used to do a lot of racing out down here in Houston. It'd be Rankin Road. We used to run a lot out at Hobby Airport. We used to run out at Westheimer. So from a dig, quite a few. I've lost quite a few too, though. And then, you know, we do the roll racing. I mean, I guess you could call it roll. Yeah, well, it's still, I guess, racing. But yeah, we did roll racing way back in the day when it was the Supras versus Z06 versus the Viper versus Porsche was kind of the four-way battle there. And man, it just depended on, you know, who had what done to their cars. The Supras were always real fast on the big end. The Vets were with nitrous and a stroker, like the 427 setup with a stroker, like that with nitrous were fast. The Vipers were always fast with nitrous. So, yeah, had a lot of run-ins like that. So, I'd say I'm doing pretty good as far as my win-loss goes. Pat's asking, does the Charger have room for water wheels than the Challenger? Yes, it does. Charger has more room than the Challenger in the back. Devontae saying, thanks, Sean. Long tubes are definitely on the list. I agree on the tire. Just don't know if it would be worth it. Bang for the buck. Long tubes and a tune. The thing about long tubes and a tune is you'll get drivability out of the long tubes You don't really get horsepower, though. You get a little bit of torque, but that's kind of it, really. Chris is asking, what was stock 06 300 SRT8 running the quarter mile? Probably somewhere in the mid to high 14s, I would guess. Thank you again, Captain Scat. I appreciate it. Sean saying, I ran a high 13 with my 300C57, so I'd like to see a SRT 61 run a 13.5. Maybe it would. I don't know, man. It just depends. You know, the NAG 1 cars depend on the rear end. I think they're 262. Or are they 308s, I think, in those cars. The 308 car probably getting the 13s. Let's see. Dodge should have done a special edition 2-door Charger. That would have been pretty cool. I was actually making that argument at one point too, that, you know, the Challenger is great. Don't get me wrong. I love the retro styling, but, you know, for a newer generation, maybe they would want to have their own body style. I don't know. Sean's hanging out with Devontae is saying, yeah, the 392 is a passion project, not a bang for the buck value compared to some other vehicles. Yeah, that's very true. Doc Diff saying he likes King bearings for the mains and rods. Listen to Doc Diff, man. He builds a lot of them. Ship Nation saying best 1 to 2 gallon mix of race gas for a bone stock 16 scat for race nights. Hashtag Mustang Gang or Mason Gang. I like it. Mason's Mob, man. That's what's up. So for me, I would go with 1 gallon of GT 260 for every 5 gallons of 93 octane. That's kind of my go-to. And again, Diversity and Comics, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. CFL got the 2 thumbs up, the arm flex, for sure. Dr. Neil saying that was meant to read unlikely. What did I mean? What did I say? Dr. News saying Dodge needs to pay attention to B. Man, I wish. So we're saying the Challenger was late to the game and had the shortest life compared to the Mustang and Camaro. That damn gas embargo, talking about the originals. Yeah, for sure. It's nice to see that the Challenger came back with a vengeance. It did, and has outlasted its predecessor by this point. Nuclear Shark Attack saying, B, do you think the Camaro LT1 is the middle ground, so to speak, between the Challenger and 6.4 and the Mustang GT? I mean, it's smaller like the Mustang, but torquey like the Mopar. What do you think? The problem is that it doesn't do anything better than the Mustang or the Challenger. And I've always said this, you got the Mustang and the Challenger here. And then if for the Camaro to be better, unfortunately, it has to beat both. It can't just beat the Challenger at one thing, and it can't just beat the Mustang at one thing. It's going to be too far away removed. It literally has to be up here at the top of this triangle. Unfortunately, it's down here at the bottom. It's not as ergonomic as the Mustang. It's not as, it doesn't appeal to as diverse of a buying public. So it loses to the Mustang there, and it's not as snappy as the Challenger is in terms of just driving experience down low. It's not as big. In fact, it's very uncomfortable. So not only is it not as ergonomically pleasing, it's simply just not as comfortable as the Challenger, so it loses there. It's not marketably faster than either one of them, so it loses there. And they say, well, it handles better. Handles better where? On a closed course? Come on, man. You ain't running these things on a closed course. Get real. I've never been in my Challenger and thought that the car handled poorly. It just is a bigger car. So a lot of people see past that, and that's one of the reasons why the Mustang the Camaro just never really took off. It was a compromise from everywhere. And unfortunately, in this case, it's a compromise that just didn't land very well. CFL is asking, is there any info on Dr. Diff or Pikes about the camshaft, intake blueprinting, throttle bodies, pictures, and pricing availability? All of the camshaft specifications are kept confidential. These are all In fact, hardly anybody's really reporting actual camshaft specifications, just because everybody's gone in and lifted camshaft specifications. But just give Dr. Diff a shout. They can get you squared away with what you're looking for. Give Pikes a shout. They can get you squared away on that end too, in terms of pricing and availability for those things. Shrek saying King Kong or Godzilla. Man, since they're going to basically, okay, look, Godzilla, he's the size of a freaking building. King Kong climbs buildings, right? So how are you going to have a movie where King Kong is the same size as Godzilla when they're not the same size? So you can't just make King Kong whatever size you want. King Kong is the size that King Kong is. Godzilla is the size that Godzilla is. They're both strong in their own way. I like the fact that King Kong has a bit of mortality to him. In other words, Godzilla can be a little bit of a Mary Sue. You know, you can hurt Godzilla, but you got to be like a super thing to beat Godzilla. I also don't like what they did with like Godzilla King of the Monsters or something like that. At the very end, everybody's bowing to Godzilla like, dude, nah, see, that's not really all that. I don't like that. It's a little bit panderous to me. So for me, I grew up loving Godzilla, but I evolved into a King Kong, more of a King Kong fan. Superior Fit saying, so no gain with mid-pipe cat delete? Not really. I mean, look, man, I've dyno tested this over and over and over again. But the more to the point, we track tested it. And we track tested it expecting to have a gain. Okay, we're going to take the cats off of this thing. It's going to run a solid 10th quicker. No doubt about it. Send it. Wait, what? No gain? Run it again. Let me look at the data. Okay, run it again. And it didn't ever work out that way. And eerily enough, you know, with Robert's car, with Eden's Hellcat, I mean, it was one of these things where it would just keep running 9s or keep running, you know, 10s, whatever, and it wouldn't move. I mean, the thing, it just, there was no performance difference whatsoever. No change in mileage. In fact, with the cats on the car, now DA was close, okay? And the car's actually a little bit quicker with the cats in the car. Go figure. And guys, this is one of those things. I mean, I do a lot of R&D. I do a lot of data acquisition type stuff. It's what I really enjoy about all this. And I mean, the results are the results. It's like when I did the live show where I did the real time. Okay, the filter was off. We did a data log, put the filter in the car, and we do a data log. And I had the data log from the filter being in the car previously before I took the filter out to start the show. The data was what the data was. And the thing is, with catalytic converters, the data is with that what it is. And it's not expected, just like the intake test that I did was not expected. Who knew that the stock filter would actually show better boost numbers than literally everybody? Well, what about the K&N filter? What about the green filter? What about the AEM filter? How about just no filter? Let's run the thing with no filter and see where we're at with that. And it lost KPA. Lost air charge, as a matter of fact, too. So there's that to consider. But yeah, Dr. Div saying, how's my message get deleted? I don't know. Wait, hold on. What happened here? Summer Night saying Kingzilla, Kongzilla. There you go. Superior Fit Body saying, so no horsepower gain? No. Let's see. Sovereign saying Camaro's a blind spot nightmare for what I can tell. Man, that is kind of true. The thing with the Camaro is that the windows, okay, so you're driving the Camaro and the window is at this, like at shoulder level. I'm not going to say that it feels weird. It doesn't. It's just that you feel like you're sitting. It's a kind of a mind trick. But instead of feeling like my hands are here, because the window is higher, I have this weird disassociation that my hands were higher. It's something you get used to. I didn't spend a lot of time with the car, but and I love Gen 5s. So I don't know why my head couldn't make the switch to the Gen 6. I don't know, because anyway. Dr. said, but the rest we're going to keep to ourselves for obvious reasons. When you buy a cam, you get a little note, but hit us up. Yeah. Okay, good deal. I don't know what message got deleted, bro. Nuclear Shark saying, B, in your opinion, do you think Dodge will put a last hurrah with a 426 Hemi in the Challenger, saying the 2 to 3 year timeline? You know, man, I don't see it happening. And I'll tell you why. Number one, we haven't seen any patents or anything being put together for that. Not that they may need it, but I don't know that they've submitted anything to EPA for testing for that platform. And I think to have it approved and set up and ready for that model year, you'd probably have to have already done that. So, because that process does take time. I don't know. I can tell you that I don't know a lot of things about what Dodge is up to. But one thing is that the 392, that thing has been, the tools, the testing and everything else, all that stuff's been bought and paid for a long time ago. This is just pure profit at this point. Now, if they decided to go with a 426, that would be cool, but you got to remember one thing. The 426, from just a power per horsepower standpoint, isn't that far removed from a 392. It's only, 30 odd cubic inches. So what are you going to do? You're going to pick up 30 or 40 horsepower? It's more, but it's not like more. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to 30 to 40 horsepower and 20, 30, 40 foot-pounds of torque. You won't notice it. You really won't. You won't notice it's even there. And that's kind of the kicker here. Now, for me, I would say go 426, cool, but give us a 331 rear gear set. That's when we're talking about. So give us like a 426 making 520, 540 horse. It doesn't matter. But give us a rear gear set. Give us something else to go along with it. I want that cherry on top of the cake, okay? The cake is the 426, but without that cherry on top, I would need something to really entice me into something like that. Not saying I wouldn't like to see it. I would, but I wouldn't think that it would. Mark saying, God damn it, Mason, there will be no Kong support in my wholesome Godzilla supporting sub box. # Team Godzilla. Man, I understand where you're coming from. Like I say, I grew up big time, man. When I was a kid, I was 100% King. I was 100% Godzilla fan. In fact, I was like, King Kong, man. What the hell's up with King Kong, dude? Godzilla's the size of the Empire State Building. Like, if King Kong were to roll up on the Godzilla version that I know versus the King Kong that I know, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, King Kong would climb up. He'd be like this little, like, cell phone size thing. Going, I'm mad at you. Godzilla, take that. Motherfucker. That would be that's the size difference. But now they're the same size, right? So whatever. But that's what I'm seeing that being. And, but, I got a little bit older and I noticed, man, check it out. I mean, King Kong got the hook up. He got a little blonde white girl that he hooks up with. And I'm like, man, that ain't bad. I mean, you got at least kind of a ladies' man kind of vibe going for him. So there's that. Godzilla, man, he was always a little bit aloof, and again, a little bit too Mary Sue, man. Like, you just couldn't kill like Mechagodzilla had it going on, right? Because Mechagodzilla put a hurting on Godzilla, but you didn't really get tested, man. He was basically like a can crusher. Mothra, how you gonna fight Mothra? It's a moth. Ain't nobody scared of a moth. Just a big moth is just like a big flying cuddly teddy bear, man. I mean, you ain't gonna get on that. Rodan, man, dude, Rodan is just a big leathery looking bird. Like that, I mean, Godzilla's gonna look at that. It's gonna make, man, that's like a turkey dinner flying at you. If anything, it's appetizing. So Rodan, and then what was the thing with the 3 heads? Hydra, whatever that thing was. I mean, come on, that ain't even real. So, I mean, you got Mothra, whatever. Rodan, again, another flying thing that looks like lunch is flying in my face. Godzilla could breathe fire, man. So a moth is a furry looking teddy bear. You got to breathe on that thing, and now it's a flying fire hazard. And then you got Rodan, you breathe fire on that thing, that it's literally a flying rotisserie chicken going to land right in your face. I mean, I just don't get it. Anyway, that's where I'm at with that. Mark's checking in. Nuclear Shark saying, look, Kong rules, guys. It's just that way, and accept it. See, I'm telling you, man, Kong, as I got older, I started to understand the logic behind Kong. First of all, Kong's a more relatable super critter, if you think about it. I mean, he's smaller. He's you know, a humanoid. He's like a person, right? He's got expressions, and you can kind of understand where he's coming from. You know, he's just a more, you know, more human than a giant lizard, like this big ass iguana that got nuclearized, and now he's running around breathing fire and terrorizing a bunch of people in Okinawa or in Tokyo. It's like, why does he keep killing Japanese people? That's the other thing. Stop being so damn racist, Godzilla. Be more diverse with your killing, son. You can't just go around picking. But they know he's coming. That's the damn thing about it. They know he's coming. He's coming there every time. Every single time. They got to be getting sick of it. They got to have anti-Godzilla pamphlets, right? They got to be talking about it like, tuck and roll, motherfucker. You got to know he's coming, and he breathes fire. You can't miss him. He's the size of the Empire State Building. You pick this thing up on radar, you know he's coming, but he's still coming. He still went. You just can't do that. But then you come up with tanks, and that's the other thing. How are you going to shoot a lizard, even if it's a big ass lizard, and the tank is only that big? It's going to hurt. It's going to. I don't. But then he eats electricity too. I never could understand that. Like, how did Godzilla, like, he would go to the power plant, right? And he would eat the electricity out of the power lines, and that would give him like extra gasoline for the breathing of the fire or something. I never could get that, but I guess that's what he did too. Anyway, there's a lot going on, man. You got a lot to unpack. When you're talking about Godzilla versus King Kong, man, there's a lot to unpack there. So I don't know, but I ended up being more of a Kong fan. And maybe it's because Kong was portrayed a little bit differently too. You know, Kong, even though he was big and everything, he had that mortality. Like he almost like you knew you could, he wasn't necessarily invincible. Like he had that feeling of, man, something could go wrong, man. Kong messes up, that's Kong's ass. He's going down, but he always found a way around it. Kong always thought was smarter too. Anyway. Getting back to it, Sabir saying, okay, then I'm out. Last question, I'm out. Anything I can add for horsepower gain and keep warranty? I mean, you can kind of slide under the radar with a ported intake manifold. You can slide under the radar with a pedal commander or pedal box. It won't necessarily add power, but it will add feel underfoot, like your butt dyno. We'll get a kick out of it. A Hellcat air filter, maybe a Hellcat airbox, you know, intake system if it's a charger. Those are really the only things that I can think of, honestly, and that's not going to add a ton, but it will be good from a support standpoint. Nick saying, I hear rumors that all 19 to 21 models will have high amounts of recalls due to the regular techs and engineers being sent home due to the pandemic and assembling and testing cars. Any truth to this? None whatsoever. None. It's a speculative thing, not a factual thing. Tuxedo saying, what is your favorite car brand? I have 5 favorites, and that is Nissan, Dodge, Jeep, Tesla, and Toyota. Each one of those has their own points. Favorite Dodge brand is probably car. A favorite car brand is probably Dodge. With all of its faults, it does things when I say it, from a product standpoint, they do things very differently. They still stay fairly retro with the Jeep and with the Challenger, and they stay true to those roots. They're a good foundation and a good community in general. From there, I would say I like some obscure stuff. I've always been kind of a fan of GMC for the trucks, only because it wasn't Chevrolet, but it kind of was. But Pontiac, another non-existent brand at this point, but Pontiac was one that I was always a huge fan of, and Buick. Back in the GS Stage 1 days, but Pontiac, Buick, and Dodge were always kind of my 3 go-to. And then, of course, Jeep was always in there too. Always a huge Jeep fan. Jeep Wagoneer, Jeep CJ7, and Scramblers. Always love those two. So that's kind of my lineup. Nuclear saying, never heard such a rumor. Doubt that's true. Yeah, it's not. Sovereign saying Camaro gives you an 8-hanger chopper feel, I guess. Not really. What it felt like is I felt like I was a foot or 2 shorter than I am. I just, and again, it was just like a mental thing. Yeah, obviously, you get over that, but I don't know. I just can't really explain it that well. Unfortunately, I don't have the vocabulary to go there with it. Oh, Alex saying Camaro's so small, it's almost Corvette size. It is a little bit small. The Camaro's like a 7/8 size. Pat DeBunny saying, to make the Challenger work, Dodge had to use the LX platform for budget reasons, yet ended up being number 2 after the Mustang. What platform did the Camaro use? Was it the new design? Because they're number 3. They used the oh crap. I know this. It's the same platform that the Holden Monero GTO G8, if I'm not mistaken. That same kind of family of platforms is the one that they use for the Camaro. I just can't remember the damn name of it. UTS is saying, what's your suggestion for a clutch kit for a 14 SRT8? That would be the McLeod RTS clutch. Jamie saying, screw the Mustang and Camaro, bring back the Trans Am. Bring back Pontiac if you're going to bring back the Trans Am, and have Pontiac have its own engines, if that could be even possible. Robert saying, so if I go with a 10-pound, 125 shot of nitrous with the Mala piston and rods and Kingsford Clevite bearings, would my trans handle that? 2003 SRT8 5-speed Nag 1 trans, probably not. Not for very long, I'll say. Dr. News saying, won't notice 30 unless it's on Rick's car. Sovereign's hanging out with Jamie. Let's see. Sovereign Night, Rodan, turkey legs from hell, for sure. Pat saying, Shin Godzilla for the win. Sovereign saying, all this talk of giant creatures, where the hell is Voltron? No, not the crappy vehicle version. Look, man, that's the only Voltron. Oh, wait, Voltron with the cats, right? I don't know. I can't remember, man. We're talking about real giant creatures, not these made up cartoon giant creatures. I mean, come on now. Jamie saying, or Ultraman. Chris saying, how much horsepower can I add to a Hellcat and be safe on 93 octane? 0. No, seriously, the amount you can add is up to whatever the fuel quality of 93 octane that you have. I'll be real honest with you, man. You can, 295 upper. I would say 700 horsepower-ish to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno is the absolute true honest to goodness limit. At that weight and at that aerodynamic drag level that you're at with the Dodge, again, that's going to add load. That's about where you're at. Now, if the car were lighter and were more aerodynamic, you could obviously get away with more. But if my aunt had a package, she'd be my uncle. And in this case, you got a heavy car that's not very aerodynamic. It's going to be taxing a lot of the fuel in terms of dealing with the cylinder pressures and the dwell time at those cylinder pressures. So just because it's, getting the thing to move, that's kind of where I'm at. I know that there are those that'll argue with me on that, and they're well-founded in their arguments that you can get more out of them, being the Hellcats on 93 octane. I will just caution you and say that you want to leave a little bit on the table in terms of overhead as a cushion. And I know some guys will say 750, and I'm going, no, but no. I mean, with a fuel additive like Boostain or Torco, or with a race gas additive, you can obviously get there. But if we're talking about true 93, and the true 93, by the way, is the way that I run Revlon. Revlon runs on true 100% 93, no Torco, no Boostain, no race gas mix. And that, in fact, I grabbed my dyno sheet. It green screened 666 horsepower. It put down 662 to the rear wheels. And even at that level, and even at stock timing in a lot of those areas, it'll still have a little bit of knock retard if I get bad gas. And so you have to factor in the possibility for issues with fuel quality. And that's the thing. In fact, perfect example of that, the last time I was at the drag strip, I had a bad tank of gas. I had a tank of gas go bad, honestly. It was the same fuel that was in the car when I was at the track rental at Mopar. But that very next week, I was getting this really weird, like, short-term knock retard. I was going, this is stupid. I can't believe this. And yeah, gas went bad. So with really clean 93 octane, stick to the formula of the 700 horsepower to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno, 730, 740 to the rear wheels on a dyno jet. Your wallet may thank me. Sovereign Knight saying, can't go wrong with Toyota. Toyota's always good. Sovereign saying, I used to be all for Honda, but I learned to Toyota now. A lot of folks have learned to Toyota now. Nick saying he's King Kong, not Mighty Joe Young. He shouldn't be that much smaller than Godzilla. Well, but that's the thing. I mean, when you would see Godzilla's walking around. Okay, when Godzilla's walking around and buildings are like this to Godzilla. All right, Godzilla's like at head level with buildings. King Kong's climbing buildings. So, just saying. I mean, in the original King Kong, he climbed to the top of the Empire State Building. And last I checked, Godzilla was about the size of the Empire State Building. So, we're not saying lions all the way. Doc saying, my stock 5.7 balanced, hardened, and ARP studded with ATI on it and has held up very well at 800 to 1,000 wheel. Very true. Pat saying, do you think the Dodge Hemi V8 will be gone in the next few years? Be part hybrid for all electric and gone forever. I hate that I'm old and stuck on the nostalgia of the V8 and also the sound. I don't know that it will go away real soon, but I don't think that it's going to last more than about another decade in the car variants. It might, but Dodge will be the last one to throw it in. Let's say it lasts another 15 years. That might be about as far out as you can see it. But we'll see. I mean, this same question came up with V8s in general back in the early 80s, late 70s. You know, will V8s go away? Will everything be a V6 with a turbo or four-cylinder with a turbo? V8s they're not needed anymore. You get the same power out of a turbo and all this other stuff. The people started figuring out that wasn't necessarily the case. And the market was saying, no, we want our V8s back. We really do. And so because of that, the V8s were also part of the engine set of engine family that was being modernized and updated and upgraded, and now they get great fuel economy and make all this power, and it's a great thing. That might end up happening with the internal combustion engine itself, and I would assume that it would. I mean, that's just kind of how this works out. I think that the buying public is going to want internal combustion engines because of reasons, valid reasons. And I think it'll stick around. We'll see in what way, though. I'm hoping it won't be dadgum hybrid type. I mean, I like the idea of a V8 with a couple of maybe electric motors or something like that to go along with it. Might get me interested, but man, I would rather see it go 100% all electric with maybe a, some interesting engine to keep the batteries charged. Something like that. That's just kind of what I'm thinking. Sovereign's hanging out with Dr. Diff. Sovereign's hanging out with Pat. Let's see. Pat saying Tesla's pretty electric is fast, but I totally miss the V8 muscle, especially a CAN V8. True, but there's other things to look forward to as well. And so, although we may miss the nostalgia of those types of power plants, there's always there's going to be some other things to look forward to. And then, guys, I'm going to get to the last of these, and then I'm going to jet because we're coming up on 2.5 hours, and my voice is just about to start sounding like I gargled with glass. Let's see, Summer Night saying electric is the future pretty much. In the future, I only see ICE engines used for generators for powering electric motors and charging batteries. Could be. And airplanes and excavators and stuff like that. Summer Night saying smaller displacement engines, of course, for sure. Pat saying, I feel like the V8 was just brought back as a gimmick. Four bangers make way more efficient power. Some of us may disagree with that. And I feel like government mandated restrictions will kill it regardless of the public wants it. So here's the thing, Pat, you got to remember something. Inline fours only make steady state power more efficiently. And it's not really more efficiently. It's just maybe using less fuel. But anytime you tip into that throttle and you spool up the turbo, with a V8, you can maintain stoichiometric fuel air ratios. But with that turbo, you have to go richer. So to make the same power, you need to use more fuel with a turbocharged application. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of folks don't realize that. But to generate, let's say 300 horsepower, the NA engine may only have an air fuel ratio of 13.0, 12.8, whereas the forced induction engine is going to be around 12.0 or 11.5. And it depends on how often you have your foot in it as to determine how often you're in boost. Simple transitions, you could be throwing fuel like crazy at a Turbo 4. And it's funny because I had a rental, what was it, like an Escape or something like that, but it had the 2.3 liter turbo engine in it. And going down the freeway, it would get decent fuel economy, but that thing in general got lousy fuel economy. It didn't help that I was always sticking my foot in it, but you get the idea. There are some efficiencies that you give up there. Pat said, let's see. Pat saying, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Pat saying, good night, all. Sovereign saying, have a great rest of the weekend, B. You do the same. And Pat saying, two of his two cars are V8s. And SRT8 Charger and an old Roadrunner. I guess if the V8 goes away, buy used. Yeah, no kidding, right? You can still get gas. That's the main thing. Well, guys, thank you all very much for hanging out with me tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Couldn't do the show without you. Love all of y'all to death, and I will catch y'all on the next one. And with that, if you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. Keep wearing your mask, if not for yourself, then for others. And I will call it a wrap. Y'all have a safe rest of your week. Get this thing up and running. And don't forget, it's spring forward, so you got to do your clocks and do all whatever you got to do with that. So at any rate, with that, that's a wrap. Adios.